Welcome to Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. On this podcast, my guest and I will discuss topics and ways to help us to heal in every area of our lives. I believe that everyone can live a life that is happy, healthy, and whole. So I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get to it. Hey guys, real quick, before we jump into the episode, I need you to do the 3 S's for me. What is that? First of all, I need you to subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss an episode of our podcast. Number 2, I need you to share it with your family and friends. Don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone else. Lastly, I need you to say something. Leave us a comment. Let us know how we're doing. Let us know what you want to see from us, what you like, what you don't like. We are open to your suggestions. We want to know everything that you want to let us know about the podcast. All right. Now, get back to the episode. All right. Welcome to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. I am your host, Earnest James, and I believe that everyone can and should live a life that is whole, healed, and healthy. And therefore, I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with your problems, heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. Thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. If you haven't already, make sure that you guys listen, like, subscribe, and share to our podcast on all of our social media platforms and your podcast listening platforms. Make sure you guys are checking us out on our YouTube channel, which is the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network, where you will not only find you will find, should I say, our sister podcast, which is the Girl Dad Discussions podcast, is there, as well as the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. Both of those podcasts are there on our channel, the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network. There's also 2 other podcasts that is there, and we plan on bringing you guys even more podcasts. So make sure you go check out the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, the Girl Dad Discussions podcast on our YouTube channel, which is the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network. Make sure you guys go and check that out. Also, our podcast is sponsored by our Deal to Heal School for Living, which is our school, which is our community, online community on the school platform. It is to help us to further better our mission to help you to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with your problems, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. There you will have workshops and resources to help you in different areas of your life. So make sure you guys go and check that out. The first 7 days is absolutely free. After that, it's only $27 a month. And each month you will have access to a new workshop. And so you guys can go there, check it out. Also, they are free resources. So when you go check it out for the first 7 days, you actually can take advantage of all of the free resources at no charge at all. When you go there and check it out. So you can go to the school platform and look up Deal to Heal School for Living, or just scan the QR code in the upper corner, and that will take you straight there for your 7-day trial. All right. So today, just like any other day, we are blessed with the guest, Miss Saige. How you doing?
Hi, so happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
No problem at all. Thank you for being here, because you could have been doing anything else with anyone else, but you're here with me and my listeners, and we definitely appreciate it. So, Saige, I want you to do me a favor really quickly. Introduce yourself to my audience. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what it is that you do.
So, I'm Saige, and I am the creator of a Lights Out Narcissistic podcast. I truly know at this time I am on this planet Earth to assist empaths with setting boundaries energetically and physically, and to truly empower everybody, especially though HSPs, highly sensitive people, and empaths. So that's why I'm here, and really happy to be here.
All right, no doubt, no doubt. So, Sage, one thing I know, there's always a story before the story, and you started talking about, start off mentioning, you mentioned narcissistic abuse. So, tell us a little bit about your personal story, because I always know, again, there's a story before the story. There's a story. There's a version of us of who we were before we had our awakening experience, well, which is generally some experience that kind of changed our lives. And as we make it through that, then we decide to spend our life helping others to do that. And, now that with you having your podcast and the things that you do, I'm sure that came from somewhere, right? There's some kind of story behind that. So if you don't mind, kind of share your story with us, from the beginning and then up until now, and then we'll kind of go into the work that you do now.
Absolutely. So I had an ex. So she probably about 2 years ago, I met an ex. And in my podcast, her name is Asia. Yes, her name has been changed.
Mhm.
And one day, we were friends. We would hang out. We were not dating. One day, she randomly texts me. She says, I'm alone. I'm scared. I have 6 months to live. You don't even have to love
Mhm.
me. Will you marry me? And at that time, I'm in a totally different place now, but at that time, I felt unloved. I didn't feel like anyone would ever love me. I thought this was my only chance at marriage with a woman, and so I said yes. And from there was probably the most traumatizing 5 months of my life. I'm very lucky. I talk with women around the world that have been in narcissistic relationships for 30 years. So
Mhm.
I'm very blessed. God definitely stepped in. Her and I were only engaged for like, I don't even know the full time frame. I'd say 2 weeks to a month. And then we were
Mhm.
just friends after that. And during our relationship, she told me I'm asexual. Like, you're lucky you get to touch me, stuff like that. Um, so it already felt like a friendship,
Mhm.
basically. And then when we decided just to be friends, there was no difference. The biggest kicker was she did tell me she was dying. She had cancer, kidney failure, gastroparesis, which to the listeners is paralysis of the stomach.
Mhm.
It's really hard for a patient with that to digest food, and they throw up a lot. Their intestines are like paralyzed. And
Yeah.
anyways, all of those things were lies. All she had was lupus, which is very sad still. But she was not dying. So there's a lot of manipulation and lies from the beginning. Yeah.
So I mean, I luckily for me, I've never been in a narcissistic relationship, and I don't think I even know, at least to my knowledge, know any narcissistic people. But I just as a question, my first question: do you know what was kind of, I don't necessarily want to say her motive, because it probably was to be with you, but to come up with that drastic of a story, you know what I mean? Do you know, or have any idea, why someone would even, I don't know if it's just because they're narcissistic, that they would go to that extreme, just to start. I mean, we're not even talking about in the relationship. Like, just to get started, you already started with a whole list of lies, and like dramatic lies too. It's just like, whoa, dude, that's too much already. Like, do you have any insight on why someone would even, have that thought? Because that just it's crazy to me.
It is crazy. The whole story is crazy. I started a podcast on this crazy story, right? So I've learned a lot about narcissists. They have a lot of trauma from
Mhm.
growing up. Um, they were either given nothing and struggled to survive. Their parents or parent were horrible to them. For her case, that was her case. On the flip side, there is the other kind of narcissist where they've been given everything. And they're the golden boy or golden girl. And so both sides are extremely traumatic because when you've been given everything, you struggle to realize there's other people that matter, other people are suffering, other people have feelings. And then on the flip side, you have the person who had nothing, so they're constantly in survival mode. And so they do, both sides though do believe they deserve anything and everything you have, all your time. You owe them. Everyone owes them, both sides. So she, in a very weird way, I do believe she wanted love, and the only way she could get love was to be this sick person. I didn't figure this out till a year later, and I talk about that on my podcast. She was an opioid addict. So that would go along with the lines of, I'm dying, I need, I have 6 months to live, I have gastroparesis. She would have me take her to the emergency room once a week, because she would self-harm and hurt herself. But she would say it was part of her diseases to get opioids. And when you're in the middle of it, you don't realize that. I did think she was dying at the time. Now looking back, it was truly to get these opioids.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. I think I might have to read up on that personality, because that is just, I don't know how to explain it. And I know we all deal with different traumas and deal with trauma differently. And because of some of our traumas, we develop these different personality, traits and things of that nature. But yeah, that's just one that kind of baffles me. But I want to go back a little bit, because I did ask you about her, but something that you mentioned about even yourself when it came to the point of accepting the proposal, should I say. You mentioned that you're in a better space now, but back then you're in a different space. Would you, as much as you like to share, some of the things that maybe you were going through at that point that made you feel like, you know you were even in a place where, okay, let me accept this because this may be the best that I get. So what were kind of the things that you have been through to even have you in that space as well, to even accept the proposal?
Yeah. I so I didn't have boundaries. I couldn't say
Mhm.
no. So there was even a time, because when you're around someone like that that's telling lies, you might not think anything's wrong, but your body knows something's wrong. Your
Mm.
body will tell you. So I was always in pain around her. My legs would cramp up and cinch up. I was always in pain around her. And so my body would kind of tell me, like, hey, something's wrong.
Yeah.
So yeah, I didn't have boundaries though. So there was even a time when she was like, do you not want to be proposed? Do you not want to be engaged anymore? And because I didn't have boundaries, couldn't say no, I was more worried about her feelings than my safety. My
Mhm.
body was screaming at me, but instead I said, yeah, I'm fine. Whereas what I should have said is, you know what, something's really wrong.
Mhm.
I can feel it in my body, and we need to call this off. But you see how in that space, and I have recently come to terms with this, and I'm accepting it, that I did have a love addiction at
Mhm.
that point. I was very codependent. I didn't want to be alone. And so when someone dangerous comes along, but they're still a person, you'll take that over being alone. Now I would be alone. I've been alone. I've been celibate for a year now, haven't kissed anyone, haven't talked to anyone. My life has been amazing. So we see this 360 of where I was so codependent, um, needed that love, couldn't handle being alone. And now I'm in a place where I'm like, being alone's great. I love my own company. So she really did find the perfect target. I was perfect. I was vulnerable. I was in the middle of an addiction. I was codependent. I didn't have boundaries. So when she would call me up at 2 in the morning, hey, I need you to take me to the hospital. And I had work in the morning, I'd say, yeah, because I didn't have boundaries. I didn't advocate for myself. And I see that a lot with empaths is they go to say no or speak up for themselves. Their throat closes up. Their heart starts beating fast. And they struggle to advocate for themselves. That's how I felt. So, yeah, I was kind of a perfect target, very vulnerable at that place. Yeah.
And it's just on another note, it's always kind of been amazing to me how sometimes people who prey on other people, like they almost have like a sixth sense. You know what I mean? Like they can sense the person that's that vulnerable. Part of my story, and I'm gonna get into my whole thing because I know my listeners have heard it before. When I got into podcasting was because I recognized that every woman I've ever dated in my whole life was a fatherless daughter. And
Mm,
some of those relationships, even some of my friendships with fatherless daughters who have been in relationships with married men, it was like the married men who prey on women who have these what do I want to call them? These voids, these father voids that's been left. They almost have like a sixth sense, like they can pick up on it, and prey on that vulnerability. And that's always been something that, you know, uh, kind of intrigued me a little bit. How, in almost any person who has the mindset to prey on another person, almost have a sixth sense, and they can, they don't even have to know you at all, and can kind of be like, yes, that's one of the people right there, and just pick it out. So, but I'm glad that you're in a better space, even for yourself and your own thing, and to be able to. And I would say hindsight is 2020, but to be able to look back and see, okay, this who was the person that I was at that
yes.
time, and be able to put a name to it, because I think that's important too, not only for ourselves as we begin to grow and we can kind of look back on our own life and say, okay, this is where I was at that time, and kind of be able to see our own growth. But then when we go to help others, we can point out those same things, and we can see those things in them because they are a reflection of who we were. And be like, hey, you are exactly where I was, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 3 years ago, and then we are able to help them to get them to, the point where we are now in a better space. And so I'm definitely glad that you were able to see that and work on yourself to get to where you are now. I want to talk a little bit. You mentioned it some with the empaths and teaching them even how to put up boundaries and the power of saying no, not saying yes all the time. And I love to talk about boundaries, and I always say boundaries serve three purposes. It's to save us from others, save others from us, and sometimes to save us from us. You know what I mean? So that's how I talk about boundaries. Like, you need them for all three of those, and I think sometimes the protecting us from us is like the most important, because sometimes when we're not in that good space, we're not in a good headspace, we don't even recognize, the spaces where we need to have boundaries, to keep us from being detrimental to ourselves, or to keep us from opening up ourselves for other people to be able to take advantage of us. So when you're talking to empaths, and I don't know if I would consider myself an empath, but I'm definitely a empathetic person who, feels for others, and this whole podcast and everything I do is about helping other people. But when you are talking to empaths about building that, those boundaries and things, what are some of the problems that they have, that building those boundaries would be able to save them from?
That's a great question. my when you first tell any empath, anyone, that you grew up not knowing boundaries. I didn't have boundaries for myself, so I didn't know, and I didn't know what other people's boundaries were either. I would cross them all the time too. So it was both, right? So there's been times where, like, I was at a party and I like touched a girl's leg. She threatened to beat me up, right? And so I was learning, there needs to be boundaries with touch. There needs to be boundaries. I need to have boundaries too. Like, I can't just let someone touch me however. Also, so it goes back and forth. So um I started out saying, all right, we need to establish boundaries. Immediately as you say that, that person is going to be terrified. It was terrifying for me learning about it. It was frightening. It was scary. It was that people pleasing side of us, of how are people going to react when I start advocating for myself, when I start not being available to their every beck and call, when I start saying no. It's scary, right?
Yeah.
So I tell them, I say, start with kids. Start with little kids. That's a lot less threatening than a full grown adult, right? So start with a little one. For me, in my experience, a lot of kids touch me inappropriately, and before I wouldn't say anything, or I would joke, or I don't even know. But now when they touch me inappropriately, I say, I need you to not touch me there. That's a boundary. Thank you for respecting that. And there's like this light on my face, but we're just gonna go with it. And what happens is, you're not only are you advocating for yourself, but you're immediately teaching that kid that touching someone inappropriately isn't okay, right? So it's that dual learning and that respect for yourself. So start with kids and then slowly make your way up to adults, where you slowly start. If someone says, hey, can you come to an event with me? If you don't want to go, then tell them, I don't want to go, but I would like to still see you. You matter a lot in my life. Can I see you next week and we can go to this? Or, so now you're saying no to things you don't want to go to. What happens is that person knows for sure when you want to be there. Because before, like, and I've had this in my life, say I've been like, hey, do you want to come with me to this? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, it sounded like you didn't want to come to that, but you have to say yes to everything. So now with me, if I'm saying yes, I want to be there and I'm going to be there. And if I say no, then I'm not. And so no one's guessing with me anymore. Whereas people were guessing with me before, because I would always just have to say yes or make excuses, and saying no isn't mean. So I'm trying to teach people that it's okay to advocate for yourself. And the people that, like the narcissists or the people that were taking advantage of you, will get mad when you start saying no to their 24/7 call, to you always dealing with their drama, right? When you start pulling away, those toxic people will get mad because they benefited from you not having boundaries. So they're it's a hard process. I get it. There's people that will be like, "Oh, cool, you're saying no now," and there's people that will get mad, and that's the process.
Yeah. And I think that's important because a lot of times, especially when it comes to people pleasing, we're quick to say yes, like yes to everything. And I like even how you said, say no, but then also say yes at the same time. So you say, no,
Yeah.
I'm not coming to this, but I will go to that, and I think that's gives us a little cushion to, we can say no, but still feel good because we said yes too. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Until we get to the point where we can just say no and let it be no. And I like how you said start with the kids, like, can I ask for ice
Yes.
cream? No. You know what I mean? then the kids would think you're mean. But it's like you have to build that muscle up, that no muscle. And I was actually just having a conversation with a friend of mine a couple of days ago, because I don't think she's a people pleaser, but she is someone, she is like a go-to person. Like she is one of those people that if you need help with something, that you will call her.
Yeah.
However, in this situation what we were talking about, this person, other person had just got to the point that they were just calling her for everything, um, even to her disadvantage. You know what I mean? And even to like, it just got to the point where it's like, okay, you're clearly using me now. It's not
Yes.
even so much that like you need help. Like you're clearly taking advantage of my niceness and taking advantage of me at this point. And so our conversation was her just saying to this year, the rest of this year, her word for the year is no. Just no to everything. So I'm like, well, that's what you got to do. We got to get to that point where we can say no comfortably. And I think that's a big thing that we don't, especially people. I think go-to people and people who
Yes.
are empathetic, and people who are empaths, and have that. That's a muscle that we definitely have to have. We definitely got to be able to build those boundaries again, to keep ourselves safe from ourselves sometimes. And I think that's one of those things that we have to protect ourselves from ourselves. Because if you're just saying yes to everything, you'll find yourself in some places you don't necessarily want to be at. And so, yeah, I think that's important. um, One of the lessons I'm gonna talk about, and it kind of goes right into this with the empaths and teaching them how to, set boundaries, which is just taking control of your own life as well, right? And I think sometimes when we're insecure and kind of don't know who we are, that even leads even more into that saying yes to everything, because it's like, oh well, if they invited me to this party, then I must be a party person. Like you're trying to find your identity in being around other people, or who do they think that I am. And so if this the person that they think that I am, then I must be that person. But just working with people to kind of learn themselves and not allow other people to kind of dictate who they are and who they become. What are some of those things that when you're working with people, teaching them how to kind of run their own life and not be so influenced about by other people and kind of following the crowd, as they say.
That's a great question. It, for a lot of people that haven't had boundaries their whole life, you, and I see this a lot, you walk into their life and it's like all their friends are taking advantage of
Mhm.
them. For the most part, I had that with my buddy where, he would just give his money away to everybody and he was getting scammed, he was getting taken advantage of. It's sad. It's truly heartbreaking when we can't say no or constantly just trying to gain other people's approval. So many people pick up on that. Oh, this is someone I
Mhm.
can use.
Yeah.
This is someone I can get money from, time from. They'll pick me up because they, whenever they'll be my taxi because they can't say no. And so I try to get these people to kind of take a step back and say, do you like how you are being treated right now? Do you like how you're being represented? Because people see you as someone they can get money from and take advantage of. Because some people don't even realize they're being taken advantage of. You kind of have to
Mhm.
wake them up to, hey, these
Mhm.
people are taking advantage of you. And I come in and I say, that's not what I'm going to do. I don't want your money. I don't see you as a money bag. I don't see you as someone I can dump all my trauma on. I'm going to show you a genuine friendship. And so, kind of showing through my actions, like, hey, I need to talk about something kind of sad. Are you in a space to talk about that?
Mhm.
And you need a time limit. Do you need just 20 minutes to talk about this? Do you need 30 minutes? And then also establishing, like, okay, I want to be there for you too, but I will only be able to give you 20 minutes to talk about this really heavy subject. Can we do that? So I really go in and I try to just wake people up to what's going on. You know, there's the history part where it's like someone has a super abusive friend, but they're like, but we have all this history. And I'm like, no. Like, if someone's a bad friend, it people change. You know, you outgrow people, even nice people. It's time to let them go. And that's hard to do, and it's painful and it's scary, and they're gonna get mad. Um, but you have to realize that that's sometimes the only way people grow is when
Yeah.
you remove yourself. And so I really try to just come into situations and kind of wake people up and show them that saying no does not make you mean, because that's what they think. They think that
Mhm.
if I say no, I'm a mean person. No, we're not here for other people. We're here to grow ourselves. And when you're taking care of everyone else's drama, it's damning your process of learning about yourself, healing yourself, your trauma. And so that's really where I start, is just trying to wake people up and then give them parameters of, they're allowed to ask if they're going to listen to my trauma. They're allowed to set a time limit.
Mhm.
They're allowed to, do not disturb their phone throughout the night and not have to take their friend that takes advantage of them all the time, their call. They're allowed to put themselves first, because at the end of the day, we're not here for other people. We're here to grow ourselves, to shine our light. That's it.
Yeah, yeah, and I like a couple of things that you said. One thing in particular when you said that um, you asked that, okay, I need to talk about this. Do you have the capacity to listen and to
Yes.
have this conversation with me? As a grief guide, when we're talking about grief, that is like one of the top questions that you want to be able to have with people, because sometimes grief is heavy, and you need to know that this person that you're talking to is able to handle that conversation. Like if they have unmet grief that they haven't processed, and then now they're trying to help you with your story, and you put your story on top of their story, that can be a very bad place emotionally and mentally to put them in. So I like, having that precursor question and saying, do you believe you have the capacity to have this conversation with me, or do you just have the capacity to just listen,
Yes.
and not try to fix it. You know what I mean? Just listen and let me get out what I need to say. So I really like that. And when you also talked about letting people go, I was listening to a podcast uh, not long ago, and one of the hosts of the podcast, a gentleman, was saying, and his was kind of a financial thing because he was a 9 to 5 worker who became a millionaire, right? And one of his things was, one of the best things that I could have did for my friends was to leave them, right?
Yeah.
Because you try to take people along and you can't get to where you're trying to get to dragging someone else. And so he was like, I had to leave them to go and become successful, become a millionaire, and then come back and say, this is how I did it. And for those who are willing to do the work, like, all right, you can come along now, you can join me. And for those who didn't, it was like, okay, I just have to leave you where you are. And sometimes, again, that can be hard to make that decision of whether, what time or when is it okay and when is the right time to walk away. But sometimes we just have to figure that out. And if we walk away early, we can always come back, but there will come a time in a lot of relationships, a lot of things that we have, that it just be time for us to move on, and we have to be okay with that. No more people pleasing, putting yourself first and realizing what's important to you. What are those boundaries that you need to set that's going to make life easier for you? And once you get your life kind of ironed out and things, straightened out, then again, you can go back and help those that you love and those that you left behind and those who are willing to come where you are, because there are some people that don't even want to go. They don't want to be healed. There are some people that like the drama, that like the different environments that they are in, and you may grow out of that environment and to try to save them will only draw you back in. And so again, you just have to know when it is time to walk away, and then taking that time to walk away. Um, Before we get out of here, I want to talk about two things. I want to talk about the podcast. So tell us a little bit about the podcast. How long have you been podcasting? What are kind of the messages that you know that we can expect to hear when we tune into the podcast?
That's a great question. So, the podcast, I've been podcasting since last July, so July
Mhm.
2025. The the title is very interesting. A Lights Out Narcissistic Podcast.
Mm.
So, Lights Out is a horror movie,
Mm.
and it's actually a really good horror movie. 2016. I spoil it all because it's been 10 years. You've had enough time. Okay.
Yeah,
And
I'm
I
gonna
tell
write
the
that
listeners
down.
that.
Lights out. I'm gonna have to go check that out.
So, such a great horror movie. So, we have Teresa Palmer. She's an
Mhm.
Australian actress. She is the daughter in this movie of a mom who is very mentally ill. The mom's been in and out of the psych ward, struggles with depression. When the mom, so her name's Sophie, and Teresa Palmer's name is Rebecca. So, Sophie, when she was growing up, she was in a psych ward and she made friends with this girl named Diana. And Diana is like this creepy, black hair over her face, creepy girl that follows her around. But Sophie's like, oh, I got to be your friend because that's why we're here on the planet, just to be friends with everybody. And Sophie was lonely. And so Sophie became friends with this creepy girl. And Diana is very sensitive to the sun. So she can't be out in the sun. In her time in this psych ward hospital, they end up doing some kind of procedure and they make Diana invisible. Now, the catch is you can't see Diana in the light, but as soon as you turn off the lights, she's there.
Mm.
So I relate that to a narcissistic relationship, and I felt like at that time I was Sophie. I was mentally ill. We need to say yes to everyone. We need to be friends with everyone, even if they're unsafe and creepy, and we we need to just accept everybody into our lives. And so I felt like I was Sophie. And when the lights are on, everything's great. As soon as you turn off those lights, it's a whole nother story. And I felt that way with
Mm.
my ex. When we were out in public, it was always a show, everything was great. And then you turn off the lights or you get behind closed doors and it's a horror story. Like everything's out of whack, crazy, I'm dying, lies, all this stuff. And so I felt like my ex was the demon. So that's where the name comes from, A Lights Out.
Mm.
Great horror movie. I talk about definitely how I didn't have boundaries. In episode 4, I talk about how to set boundaries. I talk about consent. I talk about where, like, before you start a relationship, what you feel comfortable doing sexually, emotionally, physically, all those things. And I definitely talk about the story of how I met this girl and how at one point she took me hostage and like all these things. So it's all in that podcast. And I really try to use the lessons that I got from this experience and share them with the listeners because it would be selfish of me to keep these lessons to myself.
Yeah, yeah, and it sounds like an amazing story. Well, I wouldn't probably say amazing story, but definitely a story that might be very interesting. And speaking of stories, one of the other things beside the podcast, you have been working on a book which hopefully by the time this comes out, we will definitely have the link for it in the description. But can you tell us a little bit about what to expect from the book? And whenever it comes out, we'll make sure that we put the info in the description so that everyone can get it when it's available. But so sure, tell us a little bit about the book as well.
Yeah, so the book is actually a crazy story. Also, so that's a memoir or a I did change some things or I added things for comic relief. So it would be a nonfiction based on a true story, and the true story is my life. So when I was 13, well, I was 12, I found out that my best friend had been bullying this girl for 4 years. And I told my best friend to stop, like repeatedly. And my best friend was a narcissist. So this is just a common theme in my life. Narcissists play the victim. So I would say, why are you attacking this poor innocent girl who hasn't done anything to you? And she'd say, she was attacking me. She came after me. She slammed my locker. She pulled a chair out from under me. So we see this narcissism once again. It's just a common theme in my life with friends, with relationships, how they will, and I've talked with men and women about this, they will like full on abuse someone and then say that they're getting abused by that person. They go back, play the victim. And so this girl that was my best friend turned against me, spread all these rumors about me, all these lies. I lost all my friends. I did have other friend groups though too at the time, so I would just hang out with them. Um, Her family was crazy. Her mom like came after me, called me on the phone one day, threatened to kick my ass. After, so in the book, her name's Cassidy, the bully, or my best friend, was my best friend. I was walking down the hallway, and this was in junior high, and she gets her shoulder and she full on shoulder checks me. And I'm like, and I just like walk away because she had been doing stuff like that, just like little things where it looked like she was just getting past me, but I know she shoulder checked me. So her mom calls me up that day and is like, I heard you hit my daughter. I was like, I've done nothing to your daughter but stay away from her. And realistically, your daughter shoulder checked me today. And she's like, well, if you keep doing this, I'm going to kick your ass. So, right, this is a 45-year-old woman threatening a minor over the phone. So when we had a landline, right? I didn't even have a cell phone. So, like, I'm like a young kid with like a landline phone. Like, what? My dad goes over that night because he finds out about this. He tries to get this crazy woman to confess to threatening me, to physically hurt me. She like tells all these stories of like, just talks about how horrible I am, my mom and I, and she would never confess. But he got a full recording, and I asked him, I said, can I listen to it? And he said, the things she said about you and your mom are so evil and dark. I will never let you listen to that for the rest of your life. It was so disgusting. And so then they started like stalking our family, threatening our family. The mom, I don't even know if I include this in my book, but the mom at one point like tries to exorcise this man in church. Like she was crazy. And so we ended up moving. So that's the book. Yeah.
That sounds like a wild ride, man.
Yeah.
Oh man. So Saige, excuse me. I definitely want to say thank you for being on. Thank you for sharing your story with us, and we're definitely looking forward to checking out the podcast and the book. Again, guys, we will have the link to the book in the description as soon as it comes out. Whenever if this episode comes out before the book come out, don't worry. Come back a few weeks later, watch it over, and then the link should be there at some point. So make sure you guys check it out. Really quickly before we get out of here, I just want to remind you guys, our podcast is brought to you by the Deal to Heal School for Living. Make sure you guys go check that out. Scan the QR code in the upper corner and go there and check it out for 7 days, absolutely free. It won't cost you anything. If you decide to stay, it's only $27 a month, and each month you have access to a new workshop. So you guys want to make sure that you check that out. Also, I'm happy to announce that we are not only are we our podcast and we are a business, but we also have our nonprofit 501c3. What is it called? I can't think of what it's called, but we have our 501c3. So what we want to do, we want to be able to bring more resources and workshops to our community, but we want it to be free for the community. So in order for it to be free for the community, we need donations because everything costs money. So again, if you guys wouldn't mind looking up the Deal to Heal the World Incorporated, which is our nonprofit organization. The link will be in the description. Make sure you guys go there and give us a one-time donation or a recurring donation so that we can help our communities even more. Last but not least, I know you're listening to this podcast. I have a podcast. Saige have a podcast. Why don't you have a podcast? If you are interested in learning how to start your own podcast, I created an online course called Start Your Podcast Now. Just go to startyourpodnow.com to find out about the online course. You have access to the course. You have access to our community. There's a lot of resources there. There's an equipment list there. There's some AI prompts to get AI to do a lot of the work for you that did not exist when I started doing podcasts. I had to do everything myself. But if you love listening to podcasts and you're ready to actually start your own, go to startyourpodnow.com in order to check out the online course, which I created just for you. So make sure that you guys get that. Saige, once again, I want to say thank you for being here. Thank you for being on and sharing your story and expertise. I want you to have the last word. Leave us with your word of advice, inspiration, however you feel, and also leave us with your social media handles and things of that nature where we can find you and follow you. I want you to have the last word, so the floor is yours.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. My last word that I love to say is if you are in a domestic abusive relationship, it is possible to get out. It's time. I tell a lot of people it's time to get angry at the time this person has stolen from you, at the energy this person has stolen from you. I was sick all the time. My hair was falling out, right? So it's so possible to get out, but you have to get angry and you need to talk to someone that won't make you feel stupid for staying in a relationship like this. And when you get out, and it is so possible, I promise it gets better. I know it's a dark hole. I know it's so scary, but I promise your life, you can still live just a beautiful life after this. It is so possible. So I just wish everyone healing and love, and I send everyone love. My Instagram is, so it's A_lights_out_narcissistic_pod. So you can definitely message me on my Instagram. You're more than welcome to. And then I have a website that will be in the show notes that you can click on. You can watch all the episodes there. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So I really appreciate being here, Ernest, and being with you. It's been such a pleasure. So
Great. I'm glad you liked it. To my audience, thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, where our mission is to help you to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with your problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. Until next time, you guys be blessed. Thanks for listening to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. Remember to listen, like, subscribe, and share. This episode has been brought to you by Deal to Heal Teas. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear an inspirational tea and be inspired all day. Let's go to dealtohealteas.myshopify.com. Remember, our mission is to help you to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for listening.